With the flick of her pen, she writes,
Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the next chapters of Pinky and Meggy, Starstruck. As we walk, as we read and walk, a rain and river ambience Irish forest walk through the fairy forests in the background. When we last left off with Pinky and Meggy, they were enjoying their Halloween party, the toadstool muffins that Harry Winterbottom had just somehow conjured up, and the 80s nostalgia music. And the party continues with chapter 14, The Night Quickens. Meggy was having the best time dancing and chatting with party guests. She saw at the back door of the cottage that Pinky had her eye on a special someone. The euphoria of the sprite whispers had worn off a little, and Pinky was sure she'd just seen Harry Winterbottom at her party. What was he doing here? Was it really him or just some local wizard with a glamour on? She couldn't be sure, but she had to know. Meggy watched her sisters skirt the outer bounds of the party, watching Harry out of the corner of her eye. Harry, on the other hand, had been watching someone else from afar. He could be so fickle at times, but a wayward wizard needn't keep his paramours close at home. He could have a different one in each town, he thought. But was that really the best way to have a romance? Meggy decided it was time to intervene, so she opened the back door of the cottage and stepped outside. Now, the back door wasn't focused so much on smiling and protection. The back door of the cottage had a job of allowing fairy energy into and around the perimeters of the cottage. Brownies could come inside to assist with the houseplants and general home upkeep and interior magic, whilst green fairies could come around the perimeters of the cottage and assist with all the landscapes. The door allowed the green fairies inside whenever they wanted refreshments. Meggy had set up a special table for spirit offerings and blessings, and anything on that table was fair game for a thirsty fairy who needed to recharge their energy. Plus, it was good karma to give back to the wee folk and house goblins, even if it was only a small spirit table filled with delectable edibles and drinks that a being could imbibe on in quiet solitude. In return, all these beings of the cottage helped the twins as best they could, each one having been invited into the space of the cottage boundaries as the bringer of the light in service to others. All in all, a fair and equitable balance of giving and receiving. As we continue our walk in the fairy forest, we jump into Chapter 15, Mashar and his minions. Now, far away from the party, a Dark Matters group of minions and their leader gathered for an attack. Count Mashar had been employed to help with a secret dark mission that would keep people from enjoying their Halloween. Why Dark Matters HQ had suddenly come up with this idea, Mashar wasn't sure. He had been told to go about the towns of Oakwood and Chumasha and surrounding towns with his minions. The minions, dressed in all manner of horrid Halloween attire, were to wreak havoc on unsuspecting trick-or-treaters and partygoers. You know, like tip-over jack-o'-lanterns, grimy-up houses, frighten little kids, and steal candy from anyone that took their eyes off their candy stash for just a second. Now, this was really work for a junior Dark Matters associate, and Mashar felt a little slighted that he, Count Mashar, had been called in to work this assignment. Surely he should be up there doing something to fool the bringers of the light at much higher levels. He knew that upper levels of management at Bringers of the Light HQ were having a fancy party this night at the Beverly Hills Hotel in California, and that his arch nemesises, Dakar and Abigail, had flown in all the way from Rockaway Point to attend at High Court's request. Why wasn't he, Count Mashar, one of the highest-ranking agents at Dark Matters, allowed to step in and try to infiltrate this party? Perhaps he wasn't as high-ranking as he had thought. There was that old arrest on his record when that dastardly cat, Scratchy Willikers, had bested him, or so that cat had thought, Mashar grimaced, and that Abigail Smile had locked him in that horrible container where he'd lost his powers and ended up in the Bringers of the Light cell block 585. Yes, Mashar could have had plenty of time to work on those Bringers of the Light at this posh party, but no. Here he was babysitting minions and knee-deep in stupid costumes which he'd been ordered to pick and wear for this event. Well, as luck would have it, there was a Robin Hood costume there in the pile. Mashar smiled wickedly and willed the costume on, even wearing the little eye mask and the hat with that wicked feather in it. If he had to be here, he thought, then he might as well make the most of it. And so Mashar and his minions flew out into the night on broomsticks and hobgoblin magic, tipping over jack-o'-lanterns, starting trash can fires, and scaring little girls in their Labubu costumes. Mashar smiled a wicked grin as he took over the night and made the magic that only he could be proud of. Labubu costumes, that one gets me every time. Chapter 16. Meggy takes a chance. We are still walking through this rainy forest with this stream, river thing going on in the background in our rainy forest walk. Chapter 16. What had brought this Harry Winterbottom to Oakwood, Meggy thought, as she again eyed him from the peripheral of the party. There had been reports through the witch coven grapevine that the towns were being peppered with unwarranted activity. The message was to tighten the boundaries around one's home and business, and to say special prayers that anyone perpetrating this nonsense be taken away from the area. Let them be on their best behavior, Meggy thought, wondering if Harry had had anything to do with this mischief. It had started shortly after his arrival. Meggy wasn't sure what she was certain of. Or was she? Meggy wasn't sure, but she was certain that she had invited him to the party for her sister. Pinky, Meggy floated a thought bubble out to her sister. Yes, Pinky answered in her mind. What gives? The telepathy between the twins had grown stronger lately, and Pinky wanted to give her sister a thwack every time she sent her the telepathy thought bubbles that knocked on the door of her mind and interrupted her own thoughts. There's someone at the party I want you to meet, Meggy said into her mind and sent the thought bubble Pinky's way. I know, I saw him, Pinky responded, but I don't know what to do now. Meggy, always the more outward-going sister, made the choice to bring these two together right now and see what would happen. Would there be sparks, or would the energy between the two fall flat? Meggy walked slowly towards Harry. Again, he was busy daydreaming about what a night in bed would be like between him and unsuspecting Linda Loveletter. Linda Loveletter always looked like someone out of a lingerie catalog, and we guessed that Harry thought this type of girl was his type. He didn't really know what he needed. He wanted to have something different in his life, more than just casual flings, but he'd been having them for so long now, he forgot how. Linda Loveletter in her black satin bustier and burgundy velvet knickers had also spotted Harry, and knowing him as a celebrity, and one that was purported to be very well endowed, had decided to lure him into the coat closet for some Halloween hijinks. But just as Linda was about to hook arms with Harry, Meggy brushed up against Harry's shoulder and whispered in his ear, "Meet me in the back bedroom in 5 minutes. Don't be late," Meggy said breathlessly, and then flitted away before he could even see who had just propositioned him. But being that he was ready to party, the invitation was all it took. Harry headed inside the cottage through the back door, which grimaced a little at his choice of aftershave. The night had just started, and already magic was afoot. What would Harry find in the back bedroom? What about Linda Loveletter and her advances toward Harry? Would they go unrequited? And what about Pinky Elvin? Would she ever meet her dream man? Only time would tell, as the spirits of Oakwood conspired to bring every being's true desires to them. Chapter 17, the back bedroom. Coats lay all over the bed as Meggy moved them aside and made the room ready for this encounter. Now, of course, she didn't want to fling with Harry, and she didn't want her sister to do that either. Not yet, anyway. It was too soon for a physical relationship. I mean, the two hadn't even met each other formally yet. Now, Meggy only had a few minutes to get Pinky into this room. What would bring her sister flying back here, Meggy thought. She simply had to find out about this Harry and Meggy thing. Why was she being so insistent on this? Who knows, she thought to herself. Maybe she just wanted to see her sister happy again and not so melancholy. Meggy sent a thought bubble to Pinky. Hurry up over here to the back bedroom. I have a delightful surprise for you. It's sparkly and I'll just know you'll love it. Pinky was always enamored by shiny things. Pinky answered back, I'll be right there. I have to get another cup of that punch. Oh no, not the Sprite Whispers again. Oh no, frickin' Sprite Whispers. Meggy wanted Pinky to be level-headed when she met Harry, not hopped up on those dreamy Sprite Whispers. Well, too late. The clock was ticking, and Harry would be walking through that door any minute now. All Meggy could do was throw up her hands to her guides in the universe and let them direct the rest of this encounter. And so she did just that. And here's what happened. The door opened slowly, and one very good-looking Harry Winterbottom snuck inside and looked around. Of course, Pinky hadn't arrived yet, and Meggy was hiding in the closet. If anything weird went down, Pinky would need Meggy's magic to help her out. Hey, are you in here? Harry said, loosening the buttons on his fancy dress shirt. No response. And then in a crash of laughter, most likely brought on by Sprite Whispers, Meggy groaned inwardly, and a poof of fairy dust, Pinky crashed into the room. So where's the sparkly thing? She burst out and then hiccuped a little. Well, hello, Harry Winterbottom said with a sideways grin. This girl was hot, but there was something else about her that he couldn't quite put his finger on. It was that feeling he'd had only once before in his life. He knew this girl from somewhere. Pinky stopped in her tracks and whispered, one of the most favorite things that always comes up in my books between soulmates. Do I know you? Oh, geez, Meggy thought, she's completely blinded by the punch. Pinky blinked through the euphoria of the Sprite Whispers, and a small smile appeared on her face. Standing before her was the most beautiful man she had ever seen. He looked just like that starman she always followed on her social media. Maybe, Pinky said, smiling, I think I might know you too. Harry stood there looking down at Pinky, who was a small girl compared to Harry's height. I'm Harry, he said, holding out his hand to Pinky. And I'm Pinky, she said, holding out her hand as she let him take hers in his. A jolt of electricity passed between them. Let's go somewhere where we can get to know each other again, Harry said, wondering why he'd said that. Of course he hadn't met this girl before. He would have remembered, right? Well, this is a time for lovers, Meggy thought, sighing a contented sigh as Harry led Pinky out of the back bedroom and forward into what hopefully would blossom into something much more than the two had ever imagined. Right now, Meggy was content to allow the two to linger together. She hadn't even thought about herself and her own desire for something more. She'd had so much fun matchmaking that she hadn't even seen the mischief and the magic that had been following her about now for more than a good while. And soon that magical thing would reveal itself to her. For when one helps out another and doesn't expect anything in return, then good things will come their way too. Chapter 18. Mashar. Oh, Mashar, you big, beautiful warlock. You, Count Mashar, preened in front of the mirror. He'd actually had a great time that night, causing mischief and letting the minions have their ways about town. He guessed he needed to get out more and let himself have more fun like that more often. For when a bringer of the light in the darker realms wants to engage with magic, They do so without a thought or care for others' well-being or safety. But this Halloween night had done something to the Count. His heart space at the sight of Meggy Elvin had widened, if only by a hair. Why did she have that effect on him, he wondered. I mean, she was a bringer of the light by birth and grace of God, for she could have been born into dark matters in this lifetime, even if it was just to try it out for a little while. But here she was, Meggy Elvin, a bringer of the light. She didn't even truly realize how powerful she actually was. Miss Shar flicked the thought away and decided to focus on something else. He had a strange craving for some of that Halloween candy, a tub of buttered popcorn, and that old-fashioned Halloween movie about the people at the carnival, the one where the lady gets turned into a chicken at the end. Should he allow himself this fun and frivolity this night? Should he go by Meggy's party again and draw in more of her light energy to satisfy his desires? Or should he just continue to sit around and wonder what his next plans were? Too many questions and choices, he decided. And so he decided to do his next best favorite thing when he was in Oakwood. He would visit his old buddy Claudius and the girls at the West End Coven. He'd suck a little blood, sleep with a few of the girls, and drink cognac with Claudius as they reminisced about old times. Yes, times were changing, and Miss Shar could feel the light slowly tapping at his soul. An odd, uncomfortable feeling that made him want to go back home again to Tessa Locke and allow the shadows to fall over him once more. And that is where we're going to stop, friends. And we will see what happens next with Pinky and Meggy, Starstruck. I bid you I don't know what I mean. A sweet adieu. And I will see you again very soon. Take care.